Okay. Yesterday we started lesson 5, plant reproduction. So this lesson is it's like a continuation of lesson 4, and we learnt about what reproduction is. Reproduction is a process of producing a new organism, new individuals of their same kind. So all living organisms do reproduce. Okay. And plant now about animals and about human beings, how they reproduce, you will learn in your higher classes. Now how a plant reproduce. Plant can reproduce through stems, roots, leaves, or seeds. Okay, so how a plant can reproduce, children? Everybody just look at the second point and tell me. They can reproduce through seeds, some can reproduce through roots, some can reproduce through leaves, some can reproduce through stems. Reproducing means what? Some can develop a new plant from seeds, some can develop a new plant from root, some can develop a new plant from leaves or stem. Okay, next slide. Why do all living things need to reproduce? What is the necessity to reproduce? Give me a minute. Everybody look at the screen. Okay. So for any living thing to continue the survival of its kind. So why all the living things reproduce, children? To continue their survival on earth. If humans stop reproducing, what happens to humans? After a particular year, no humans will be there on the earth. If plant stops reproducing, what happens? Slowly, plants will not be there. So after a few years, you will not see any plants. So reproduction is very, very, very important for all living things, because to continue the survival of its kind on earth, reproduction is important. Next, plant reproduction. As I already told you, how other organisms reproduce, you will learn in your higher classes. Now we will learn about how a plant reproduce. How a plant reproduce. Now, as I already told you, plant can reproduce through seeds, through leaves, through stem, through root. Now, first we will learn about how they reproduce through seeds. Okay, to learn about how they reproduce through seeds, we should learn about the sexual reproduction of plant. So first we are learning about what? First we are learning about what reproduction? They reproduce through Yes, Natasha, I will tell you. Yes, Srimati gave the right answer first. We learned that it can reproduce through seeds, stem, leaves and roots. But first we're going to learn about how a plant is, how a new plant is coming from seeds. How a plant is reproducing through seeds. So to learn about seeds, Lakshman gave the right answer. We're going to learn about sexual reproduction. Before that, Natasha has a question and Hasini has a question. Hasini, we will die because if there is no plant. Yes, if there is no plant, we cannot get any nutrition and we will not get oxygen level on earth will be very low if there is no plant and trees. So we and animals and human beings cannot live on earth without plants and trees. You are correct. Okay, Natasha having a question, ma'am. What does sexual mean? Yes, good question. Sexual means it is a reproduction process where two parents are involved. Male and female are involved. There are other types of reproduction where you need this two parent. Male and female is not necessary. There are single-celled animal. Only single cell will be there. Single-cell bacteria. Okay, their reproduction is different. Okay, and you don't need a parent, a male and a female. If you take few plants will not reproduce through sexual method. So what is sexual reproduction, children? You should have, in sexual reproduction, two parents are involved. Male and female are involved in producing a new individual. If you take humans, we go through sexual reproduction only. Two parents are involved, male and female. Understood? So now we're going to learn about sexual reproduction in plant first. So Natasha, you understood the meaning? Yes, Natasha, you're correct. Srinidhi, just now I gave the meaning. Sexual is a reproduction process where two parents must be there. Male and female should be involved. Then only this process can take place. It's just a name of the process. It is the name of the reproduction process. Understood, Srinidhi? Okay. Next, how a sexual reproduction takes place? Yes, let me ask you a question. Here, let me read the point first. Male and female reproductive cells, called gametes, combine to form a single cell called zygote. Now, Lakshman and Aisha come to the queue. Lakshman, Aisha, who's the other one in the attendance? Lakshman, Aisha, Balamukundan, Richard, Karunya, Rahul Narayan. Till Rahul Narayan, everybody come to the queue. 6 people. Lakshman, Aisha, Balamukundan, Richard, Karunya. Richard is here, Aisha is here. Sahana, why did you come? You're not there in first 6. Okay, Karunya, fine. Now question to Lakshman. Why I'm going in attendance order is so that I will not miss a person. Everybody will get a chance. Sahana, my dear, you will get chance later. I'm going in attendance order, okay? Now Lakshman, tell me the answer. Who carries male reproductive? Yes, good morning, Lakshman. Who carries male reproductive cell?
Pollen grains.
Very nice. Okay, next question to Rahul Narayan. Rahul, who carries female reproductive cell?
It is the ovary, ma'am.
Not ovary, it is ovules. Ovary has ovules. Ovules only contains female reproductive cell. Very good. Understood? Rahul? Rahul? Okay, he muted his call. Aisha, come to the queue, Aisha. Yes, Aisha here. Aisha, they both combine to form a single cell called dash.
Ma'am? What's the question, ma'am?
Male and female reproductive cell, they will combine to form dash. Screen, answer is there in the screen.
Male reproductive cells
will combine with female reproductive cell and they form dash. They form a single cell called dash.
Zygote.
Yes, very good. Zygote. Okay. Both male and female reproductive cell combine together to form a zygote. Now next image shows how the process happens, how they combine. Okay. Now the next chance to till Rahul, I called out the name. I got only 3 people on the queue, so let me call from Rahul. Charles, come to the queue. Charles, Nilavan, Nihara, Charles, Nilavan, Nihara, Neela. Okay, thank you, people. Question to Nilavan. Nilavan, look at the screen. Yes, Nilavan, look at the screen and explain me the process.
Yes,
A and B. You are seeing the picture, no? Yeah, explain me what's happening there. Yesterday only I taught you.
Ma'am, Ma'am, in the A picture, the pollen grains are going to the stigma
Very
and
good.
germinating.
Not
In that
what it
pollen
develops.
grains,
What it develops. Yeah, your first point is correct. Pollen
pollen
grains and
tubes.
stigma. Very good. Pollen tubes. Okay, and pollen tubes. Then the pollen tube reaches where?
Pollen grains contain
No, pollen
male
tube reaches.
reproductive cell, ma'am.
Okay.
The pollen tube reaches to the ovary.
Very nice. Okay, thank you. Let
Then in
Nihara
the second
continue.
picture,
Yeah, thank you,
that
Nihara will continue. Nilavan, thank you. Nihara, tell me, Nilavan said that pollen grains on stigma and the pollen grains will develop pollen tube. The pollen tube reaches ovary. Then what happens?
after the pollen grains reach ovary, it goes.
Pollen tube reaches ovary.
After the pollen tube reaches ovary, it goes to ovule and it forms a new cell called zygote.
Very good, Nilavan. So, as Nihara said, the pollen tube, when it reaches ovary, the male reproductive cell from the pollen grain, it reaches the ovary, and there already female reproductive cell there, no? So, they both will combine and they will form a zygote. Understood? Now, Om has sent a big message, ma'am. Actually, if any living organism becomes extinct, slowly all will become, because if plants become, then humans and plants eaters yes Om, you're correct. Ecosystem will spoil if one living organism extinct, and eventually others cannot live. Okay, next, look at the screen now. The zygote, once the zygote forms, what happens to the zygote? Okay, till this picture yesterday we learned, no? Now we will learn after zygote what happens. So first this male and female comes, okay, they will combine together and they form a zygote. Okay, once they form zygote divides to form a multicellular structure called, see, zygote is a single cell. You remember? Zygote, they both combine together. Who both? Male and female reproductive cell, they combine and they form single cell. Now, the single cell zygote divides to form a multicellular structure called embryo. Multicellular means more than one cell. Now, we human beings are single celled or multi-celled? Type it in the chat box. Yes or MS? Single celled or multi-celled? Yes, MS. Correct. We are not single celled. We have, yes, Rajanya, MC, sorry, multi-celled. Multi-celled, CELLED, correct. Yes, MC, multi-celled. So, we are multi-celled likewise because we have more than one cells. Okay, many cells are there in our body. Likewise, the zygote, which is single celled, they will divide. The single cell will divide into many cells. That is, they divide and they form a multicellular structure called embryo. Okay, remember, children, you all remember in class 3 we learnt about embryo. When we learn about the structure of seeds, we learnt about embryo. You all remember? I was only teaching you class 3 science. That time I was telling you about embryo, cotyledons. When we learnt about the seed coat, we learnt about the structure of seed. You remember the word embryo? Yes, very good. So this embryo is formed from where? They formed from zygote only. Zygote forms from male and female reproductive cell. How male and female reproductive cell come in contact? Through what process? Let me see who is answering this. How this male and female came to contact? What is the name of the process? What is the name of the process? Male is coming and yes, Lakshman, very good. Oh, you're correct. That process is called pollination. Through pollination only, male is coming and the pollen grains coming and falling on stigma. Then only the pollen grain starts to, that process is pollination. After pollination, what happens? The pollen grains will develop a pollen tube and they both will, male and female will combine, they form zygote. Once they form zygote, the zygote develops to form a multicellular structure called embryo. Then what happens to the embryo? Embryo develops into a new individual, because if you take a seed has embryo. From embryo only a new plant comes. Okay, embryo present inside the seed. Embryo is present where? It present inside the seed. Understood, children? Everybody? Now, next. Before that, I want you to type these 3 words in the chat box. First, embryo, zygote, embryo, new plant. Type it in the chat box. Embryo, very good, children. Why I asked you to type this is so that you will know the process. First the zygote, next the zygote forms into embryo, and from embryo a new plant comes. Just for you to know that, for you to know that process, I asked you to type it in the chat box. So what is the first steps? First zygote formation, next the zygote divides into form embryo, then from embryo only a new plant comes. Now, fertilization. What is fertilization? Just before we learned about the process, no? The pollen grains landing on stigma and producing a tube called pollen tube. And this tube carries the male gamete through the style to the ovule. We learned that, right? Children, everybody look at the first picture. If you can, if you are using mobile phone, I want you to zoom that picture and see. That orange color small dot is there. No, that is pollen grains. Pink color is anther. So when a heavy wind blows, what happens? This pollen grains jumping from anther to stigma. As it reaches stigma, can you see that yellow? It is developing yellow color tube. The yellow color tube is going inside the ovary. Can you see that? Now look at the second picture. Look at the second picture. That yellow pollen grains, which is on the green stigma, it is developing a pollen tube, and the pollen tube is reaching the ovary. Okay, and the zygote formation. Yes, this you already know. I repeated many times. Now the next slide. Ovules contain the female gamete. The male gamete combines with the female gamete to form a new cell called zygote. The process of combining of male and female gamete is called fertilization. Now, ma'am will give you 2 minutes time. I want you to learn these 2 points now. I will call anyone to say this without seeing. Now learn it. Don't touch your chat box now. Just look at the screen and learn. Yes, Hasini, what's your doubt? Good morning,
Ma'am,
Hasini.
what does the zygote do?
Zygote will start divide. Zygote is a single cell. That single cell will divide. As it divides, it becomes many cells, and they form into a structure called embryo.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Children, learn what is fertilization. The answer is there in the screen. Learn it. 2 points. Not only the second point. You have to learn the first point also. Yes, Jenilia, yes. Let everybody learn. Yes, Lakshman, kindly wait 1 more minute for others to learn. Finished? Okay. Jenilia will say because she asked me first. Is Jenilia, tell me.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Tell me.
What kind of one? Ovules contain female gamete. The male gamete combines with the female gamete to form a cell called zygote. The process of combining the female and the male gametes are called as fertilization.
Very good. Very good, Jenilia. Children, yes, Lakshman, I appreciate your willingness, but it's time. Okay, we have only less time. Let me finish this. Okay, I hope you all studied. Very good, children. Next comes the fertilization process over. How a fruit and seed formed. Now I have given a picture. I want you to compare a fruit, and the tomato fruit is there and the tomato flower is there. Just compare it. Sepal is formed into what? Pedicel is formed into what? And what is formed into a fruit, and what is formed, which part of a flower is formed into a fruit, which part of a flower is formed into seed. Compare and see. Zoom the picture and compare it. They have compared it. Can you see the pedicel of a flower and the top of the fruit? Green color part. They both are same. And look at the sepal of a flower. It formed into the sepal of the fruit. Ovaries formed into fruit. Ovules formed into seed. And look at the stigma. If you take tomato, we will remove the top and the bottom part. When you take tomato to cook, what your mother does, we will remove the top black color one and the bottom black color one. Then only we used to cut it. You know that? So the top one is sepal and pedicel, and the bottom black color one is stigma. Stigma of a flower. And the fleshy part is ovary, seed is ovule. That is not banana, that is a flower of tomato plant. Enlarged flower of a tomato plant. It is not banana. Om. Yes, Srinidhi is asking me a question. Ma'am, what happens? Okay, ovary, we learned it. Ovules become seed. Pedicel, sepal and stigma is forming something in the fruit. And what happens to the stamen, style and petals? They will dry and fall off. Yes, it is upside down, Natasha. Yes. Just for you to understand, they have given it upside down. They have compared it with the fruit. So children, what happened to the petal, stamen and style? After fertilization, once a fruit is completely formed, the sepal, petal and the other, not after completely formed, before itself, when the fertilization process starts, simultaneously petals, stamen, style will dry and they will fall off. Then you will see only ovary, which is a fruit. Okay, now the next point, once the zygote is formed, it divides rapidly to form an embryo. When the zygote begins to divide and grow, the ovary begins to develop a fruit. So once the zygote is formed, children, when the zygote slowly starts to divide, simultaneously ovary also develops into a fruit and the ovules start developing as seeds. Understood? So now let me clearly tell you that. So now zygote is inside the ovary. Yes or no? It is inside the ovary only because it is formed inside the ovary. When the zygote starts to divide, when they divide and when they form into an embryo structure, simultaneously what the ovary does, ovary bulge more. When this process is happening with the zygote, ovary will become into a fruit. And what happens to the ovules? Ovules become into a seeds. Understood? Okay. Now there is a picture given. 3 lines are written in it. If we could open your bean seed, this is what we would see: the baby plant or embryo, because embryo is the baby plant. From embryo only a new seedling will come. A hard seed coat to protect the embryo, and a cotyledons. You remember the word cotyledon? We learned monocot seed, dicot seed. Cotyledons, and the cotyledons which will feed the embryo until it can make food for its own. Embryo, since it is a, see, when you are baby you cannot make your own food. If you take myself, now I can make my own food. You also, you can just take, you can do some flameless cooking and you will make your own food because you all are grown up. You are in now class 5. If your mother asks you to take something, you can just take a bread, apply jam, and you can prepare your own food and have it. But if you take baby of 5 month, 1 month, 1 year baby, 2 month baby, 3 month baby, it cannot prepare its own food, right? Likewise, the embryo baby plant, it cannot do photosynthesis. It cannot prepare its own food. So where the food is stored for the baby plant? Cotyledon has food for it. This we already learned in class 3. Just I am revising that. The next slide. The embryo thus formed have 2 leaf-like cotyledons and it's surrounded by a protective seed coat. Seed coat develops from ovule walls. Children, listen here. Seed coat is formed from where? Ovule walls. The egg-like ovules are there, no egg-like structure. The wall will form into a seed coat. Now the last slide of today's class. The embryo contains the cell which later develops into a plant. Can you see that embryo? White color one. It has a cell which later develop into a plant. With this we finish today's class. Children, don't leave the class. I have few more information. With this we finish today's class. So in today's class we revised sexual reproduction, we learned about fertilization, and we learned about formation of fruit and seeds. Next class we will learn about germination. How the seed, for a seed to become a tree or become a plant, it should reach ground. Okay, so after it reaches, how the germination is happening and how it is reaching the ground, all these things we will learn in next class. Okay children, now everybody take your book.